Welcome back to the Hawkeye Garage. I am Joe. This week we are doing what is hopefully the final update of the check engine light saga for the GX470, and we have a lot to discuss, so stay tuned. That's right, if you haven't watched, there's been probably 3 or 4 videos on the, like I said, the check engine light saga that I've been dealing with for the last 6 months or so with the 470. If you're having some of the same issues, check engine light, that you can't figure out what is going on, that has to do with air-fuel ratios and rich and lean codes and stuff, go back and watch those videos. Of course, I'll link some of them at the end of this video, and I'll put them all in the description below. But anyway, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. The biggest issue was I was getting a rich code. It's like the 174 and 171 codes, basically a code for telling you one side of the engine is running rich, and then one that just says like a general rich code, which is actually the Toyota code for the other bank. Why they're named like that, I don't know. But that's where we're at. I was running rich, and again, hold your comments, watch the other videos, and let's talk about the final solution. I was pretty much at my wit's end. I was just completely boggled. I'm pretty good with this stuff usually. I finally was able to get in touch with a Lexus tech through the GX Facebook page, someone who really knows what they're doing. And we spent quite a lot of time messaging back and forth, doing some diagnostics, and thanks to them, we've figured out the problem. First off, they had me disconnect my secondary air pump bypass module, that Hewitt Tech module, and just run the engine the way it was. I hadn't done that before because I was not 100% sure on how that system works. Usually it gets bypassed because there's a lot of plastic parts, there's like this weird foam filter. Stuff starts deteriorating and things fail, and then the system doesn't work. It's very expensive to replace those parts, and they end up failing down the road again. It's just, unfortunately, it's just not a very good system. And the bypass just tricks your MAF sensor into your mass airflow sensor into thinking that it's not in there anymore. Anyway, I hadn't unplugged that because I wasn't sure if some of that foam or that plastic that was breaking down, because I did not put that bypass on, so I was not familiar with the state of that injection system, that air injection system. So I didn't want any of those parts to end up going into the intake. Turns out that's not how that system actually works. So there's no fear in that happening, and this Lexus tech was able to tell me that. So we did that, and then we were monitoring air-fuel ratios with my OBD2 scanner and the app on my phone. I used the ViaPeak scanner and the OBD2 Fusion app on my iPhone, and then with the upgraded Toyota Lexus package with it. Pretty good. I like it a lot. Anyway, we determined that through monitoring the air-fuel ratios several times, with the bypass, without the bypass was bad. That's pretty much what it boiled down to. Your air-fuel ratios, for the most part, should be like in the negative low 1 digits, and I was like getting up to like negative 30 sometimes, and it was not good. They weren't good without the bypass plugged in either, still negative 10, negative 20. But since that system usually only functions when the engine is cool, once I had the engine warmed up, cleared any codes that I may have had driving around, they were much more normal, like negative 8 to 10 right in there, which is still not it's not great, but it was enough for us to realize, yeah, that bypass is probably wrong. And I hadn't seen any information on the web anywhere about these bypasses failing. So I did have in my stack of records from the previous owner the receipt and everything for that bypass. I called up Hewitt Tech, kind of told them what I was dealing with. They said, what codes are you getting? And I told them, and they're like, oh yeah, we've been seeing that with some of our older modules. Sounded like it was pretty common for them to know that was an issue. It's only 3 years old, just 3 years old, so I wouldn't really call that old. But it was common enough for them that just me telling them the codes and kind of what I was experiencing, they knew that it was bad. And thankfully they did send me out a replacement one, and that fixed it and led to another check engine light. Now this is where it's going to get a little bit complicated, but if you're dealing with this, these are things that you're going to want to know. I need to look at my phone because I took pictures. I'll put this up there. The first day that I put the new bypass on, of course I was driving around. I did a little bit of highway driving, a little bit of in-town driving, and my air-fuel ratios were like 0 to -4 at the most extreme, so it ran perfect. The next day, I came home. My wife hadn't driven the car all day. Come out, give the car a start, because of course I'm still a little gun shy at this point, and it immediately popped the check engine light. Now this time, it was for a P0418 secondary air injection system relay A circuit. Now, I did have to do some more Googling on this, and let's see if I can break this down into somewhat detailed and somewhat ambiguous so that we don't go crazy. The air injection bypass is kind of like an EGR system. It's going to recirculate warm air from the exhaust into the engine to help heat the engine up quicker. That's not exactly how it works. Let's just roll with it as a generalization. And that uses pumps and filters and stuff. And what that original bypass does is it replaces the pump system and the mechanical side, the actual things that are actually mechanically moving and operating, pumping air, opening valves and stuff like that. This bypass tricks the car into thinking that those are functioning properly or that they're not there at all to begin with. Now, if you're dealing with that and you replace that, you could be done. You could be done fixing things and you'd never see another check engine light having to do with that system again, unless your bypass goes bad. Or you have the electrical side of that system, and there's actually two sides of that electrical system because there's two sides of the engine. Now what mine was basically the electrical was the driver's side was getting very confused on why it was trying to make this system work, but the pump was acting like it was non-existent because we bypassed it. And so that's kind of my understanding on how the electrical side works. If you bypass the mechanical side, your electrical could either just lay dormant and have nothing to do. It doesn't really care that nothing is happening. It can continually try to turn this system on, which is basically what mine was doing, and it can fry itself, which can be good or can be bad, because it can fry itself in a position that it continuously thinks there's something wrong, therefore turning on a check engine light, or it can fry itself on a side where it's not trying to do anything, and then no one's the wiser. The computer doesn't know any of it's broken, it doesn't know any of it's not functioning, it's fine. Or you could also have that electrical system just not do anything at all out of the get-go. So there's that. You kind of have a few different selections, and again, I realize I'm not like trying to dumb this down, excuse me for the term, but also explain it enough that it kind of makes sense so you guys know, you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I had to call up Hewitt Tech again, gave them the code, and they're like, oh yeah, and then they explained again the same thing. We have this other bypass module that I'll get under the hood and I'll show you guys, that will take care of that side, and that should fix that. And they asked me if I was throwing a code for the other bank, the other side of the engine, and no, thankfully I wasn't, and I haven't, because you could end up buying two of those. So you could end up having a bypass and then those two cheater boxes for each side of the engine, or they do offer a whole kit that's slightly different parts but does all of it right off the get-go. Anyway, before we go under the hood, I got that box, and originally the car wouldn't let me shut the check engine light off at all. Like it'd go through, clear the codes, it would flash off and immediately turn back on. Did that for about 3 days, and then of course since I can't leave things well enough alone, I get in it again and it lets me turn it off. And for about 10 days, it didn't come on at all, to the point where I called Hewitt back to get a return number, because I was going to send the module back, because I was hoping, fingers crossed, that it had like sorted itself out and either just cleared itself or failed in the opposite direction where it wasn't going to trigger the light. And of course, within the next couple days of me getting ready to send that back, it triggered the check engine light a couple more times. So of course I went ahead and installed it, and since then, no check engine lights. The car has been running fantastic. Real quick, I guess the biggest thing that people have been going back and forth on is you have to run premium fuel. Got to run premium fuel. That's your problem. Got to run premium fuel. And I've said a bunch of times that I have run test sections before where I had run premium and it didn't make any lick of difference at all. And then I was actually running premium after I replaced all that second module, just because I wanted everything to be running flawlessly and stuff. And just within the last couple weeks, I put a couple tanks of just regular 87 in it, and it has been perfectly fine. I can tell you that you get I don't want to say significant, you get worse gas mileage not running the premium. It's winter now, so we've been warming up the car more, so it's just been sitting here running, which kills the the equations in the computer. But looks like you're going to be running, in my experience, at least a half a mile per gallon less on average, running 87 to 91. So I don't know, I'm going back and forth on the math. Right now, to fill up a full tank on premium in Iowa where I live, $15 to $20 more depending on the day. So I may end up running premium long term, especially in the wintertime, because premium here, for the most part, doesn't have ethanol in it. Ethanol equals water vapor in a cold climate. Not fantastic. Anyway, let's pop the hood. I'll show you the module that I replaced, kind of where it goes and stuff like that. All right, I'm going to try to do my best here. It is this pack here. It goes much further. It's about the size of like 2 big handfuls of AA batteries, so I assume it's just a bunch of like resistors or capacitors, and I just have it shoved down in here. I need to mount it permanently, but it's kind of a pain because it's huge, and there's quite a bit of wiring. They give you a lot of excess wiring. There's a ground that you have to hook up, and then you're gonna go down into, let's see if I can zoom down here. There's this gray connector down here, and this blue wire is the one that you're going to replace. So you're going to pop out part of the factory harness, pop in the new one, and that's really all there is to it. So you just need to find a little bit better place to mount that. I didn't do it originally because I knew as soon as I permanently mounted it somewhere, I was going to have to undo it because it wasn't going to be the issue that I was having, stuff like that. So that's all there is to it. 2 wires, some place to mount that big old wad of what I can only assume is resistors or capacitors, and you're pretty much taken care of. Alright guys, sorry that was a little long-winded, but there's a lot of information in there, and I feel like in this video series of doing this, I have what seems to be a pretty common issue in these vehicles as far as check engine lights for lean and rich codes. I think I've pretty much replaced everything that could be causing any of those, and kind of the pros and cons, and the way I would go about, the order of replacing parts with kind of the final fix. For that secondary pump being such a huge issue, because they put these engines in the Sequoias, the Tundras, the Forerunners, there doesn't seem to be a lot of information about like really troubleshooting it after the fact, to the point where I had it. Maybe I was kind of the oddball out and I had more problems than most other people. I don't know, but it is what it is. If you guys have any further questions, of course, leave it in the comments below, or if you have more in-depth stuff that you want to go back and forth with, please feel free to email me anytime, hawkeyeskunkworks@gmail.com. Follow the links down below to my previous videos in this, talking about all of the other parts that I've replaced leading up to this point, trying to solve this issue, and kind of how that went as far as fixing it, not fixing it, how long it lasted before the check engine light came on, and my thought process as I replaced each one of those parts, because maybe you have need to replace one of those parts for a different reason than the light that came on for my reason. Anyway, you can also head on over to my Instagram and my Facebook where I'm posting much more often. I posted a picture of a whole mess of parts that are going to be going on this thing in the next week under the front end. So there's that. Anyway, if you're new to the channel, please give the video a thumbs up, turn those notifications on, and subscribe. We drop videos almost every Sunday. A lot of DIY 4x4 stuff and a lot of things surrounding that as well. So until the next video drops, thank you for watching. Take care. Goodbye.